Welcome to Kazan in Tatarstan. This is Jay Smith. I'm up here in probably one of the farthest northern areas of Islam, Tatarstan in Russia, east of Moscow. You're looking at the Kremlin here in the city of Kazan, across the river of Kazan. On the right side, you will see the Leaning Tower of Suyumbike. Coming a little bit over to the left, you will see an Orthodox church, and then you can see the beautiful blue dome and the four minarets of the mosque there just next to the Kremlin. It's good to be here in Kazan. I've been here for about a week now, and I have been looking at what is happening here. And what's interesting is, here in Kazan, in Tatarstan, there's something symptomatic that is happening to Muslims around the world. And that is this movement towards a secularization. The population of Tatarstan itself, about half the population, would claim to be Muslims. The difficulty is that many of those Muslims are becoming quite secular. In fact, most of them are very secular. If you come to the city here behind me across the river and to the city over on this side, you will see very few Muslims that are wearing Islamic dress, hijab and the rest. They look just like the regular Russians. They look like the vast majority of people living in this country. Only about 20% or even less actually practice Islam here in Tatarstan. But there is a troubling aspect that's coming. And I think this is happening right across the Muslim world. Though many people are becoming nominalized, many people are become secularized in Islam, those that are holding to the faith are moving towards a very radical extreme. Now, we might call it radical, we might call it extreme. I would say basically what they are doing is they're going back to their roots. They're going back to their scriptures. They're going back to the example of the Prophet himself. And we're seeing this in London. We're seeing it in many other countries where I've had to make contact with Muslims. It's natural. I can understand it. It's troubling for many people who don't understand these roots or don't agree with these roots, as I don't, because it's certainly a movement towards that Islamic state that we see in the very beginning of Islam, those first 40 years, the Rashidun period. Muslims are trying to discuss, and certainly that's going on here in Tatarstan. As I've been here and as I've been talking with people that work with Muslims, and I've been trying to engage with them, what is coming out is this troubling aspect of Muslims who do go back to Scripture, who do try to follow what the Prophet does, or what the Prophet did in the 7th century, trying to apply it to the 21st century, and it's not working, and that's one of the difficulties. It just is not relevant. And so you can see the dilemma for many of these Muslims. Now, you might say that we also are doing the same thing in Christianity. We are also going back to our scriptures, back to our roots. I would call myself a radical Orthodox Christian. Evangelicals tend to be that way. The difference is when we go back to our roots, when we go back to our traditions, when we go back to our scriptures, we find a relevancy that not only works in the 21st century, is in many ways the best model for the 21st century. In many of these videos that I've done, I have shown example after example where when we go back to Jesus Christ, when we go back to those traditions, what he said and what he did, when we go back to his life, we'll find that everything he did makes sense in the 21st century. In fact, this is one of the challenges I always give to many Muslims. Show me where Jesus is not relevant. When it comes to the context of peace versus violence, Jesus is a man of peace. We've seen that in a previous video. The way he treated women was very much as an egalitarian. It's these areas that are more universal. It's these areas modeled on Jesus Christ that make sense for today, are relevant for today. Here in Kazan, people are moving away from their traditions, becoming more nominal, becoming more secular, enjoy the lifestyle that the new Russia has brought, the very capitalistic lifestyle, dressing like other normal people, except for that small minority, less than 20% of the Muslims here, who are now trying to go back to their scriptures. That's an internal conflict that will continue. I don't know which is going to win out. I know in certain other parts of the world, the radical stream of Islam is winning, and And that's one reason why I engage more with radicals than probably any other. But that's something that Muslims need to debate amongst themselves. That's an internal debate that Muslims need to talk about. They need to discuss. They need to come to conclusions. I know what conclusions they're going to come to. I see the same conclusions happening in Christianity. The radical, the more orthodox, those which are following Scripture are the ones that are winning out in Christianity. And I thank God for that, because it's the Scripture, it's the gospel of Jesus Christ, it's Jesus Christ himself. That is what all of us need to go back to. We all need to come back to our example of Christ. He makes sense, and so I invite you to do just that. This is Jay then, in Kazan. Over and out.